Chapter 1. Ma-Ryeong, Daughter of Order. She was never meant to love him. Not a commoner. Not a servant. Not the boy she once swore to protect with a blade hidden beneath her hanbok, while the world watched and waited for her to break. And yet, his name lived in the quietest parts of her heart, where duty could not reach, where tradition dared not enter, where no one, not even she, was allowed to love. In a world carved by arranged futures and names bound in blood, Ma-Ryeong was promised to power, but her soul burned recklessly, violently for the one she could never have. To love him was to betray her family, her station, her legacy. And still, she would risk it all. Because some loves do not whisper. They scream. They tear at the seams of fate. They do not ask for permission. They devour everything that dares to stand in their way. They called her Agassi with reverent bows and careful tones. But in corners of the estate, where women poured tea and boys scrubbed floors, she had other names. Wild Blossom, Broken Sword, Daughter of Thunder. Lady Ma-Ryeong was born the only daughter of Lord Kim Tae-suk, a high-ranking second-rank scholar official whose voice stirred even the king's chambers. The family estate sprawled across the northern hills, guarded by stone tigers and men with good pedigrees. Her 3 younger brothers trained in archery and classic texts, chanted the Analects of Confucius, and recited poetry before dawn. So did Ma-Ryeong, but with a blade hidden in her robes. She had learned to write poetry in the day and practice swordsmanship at night, barefoot on moon-soaked stone. While the court wished for daughters with soft eyes and folded hands, she was fire and silk. A storm disguised as a woman. And she did not kneel easily. That morning, she was summoned. The audience chamber was quiet, lined with scrolls of ancient philosophers. Her brothers knelt outside, avoiding her gaze. They'd heard. Of course they had. A proposal had arrived. The 3rd this year. "I've accepted," Lord Kim said without preamble. "You'll be betrothed by summer." To whom? Her voice was cool, but there was steel beneath. Minister Hwang's eldest son. Educated in Hanyang. They say he reads 5 scrolls a day. Can he read a battlefield? She asked. Or a woman's heart? Her father's brow furrowed. "You were not raised for war, Ma-Ryeong." "I was not raised for silence, either." She stood straighter. "You say I am daughter, yet you taught me to think like a son." "I taught you discipline," he snapped. "No, father," she said. "You taught me fire, and expected it never to burn." He stood slowly, walked to her with heavy steps. His robe whispered like the hush before thunder. "You will obey. You will marry. That is how the world works." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Then let the world be wrong." He raised his hand as if to strike her. Then lowered it. Not out of mercy, but fear. She did not flinch. And he realized he could no longer control what he had created. "You shame me," he said. She bowed, eyes forward. "Better to shame you than betray myself." That night, she fled the estate through the garden wall, a loose stone only she knew how to move. Dressed in black, hair tied like a swordsman, she ran to the mountain grove beyond the estate, where trees bowed like elders and wind hissed through bamboo. There, she drew her blade dull, nicked, but hers, and slashed through the air with precision. Over and over. Until sweat pooled on her skin. Until pain silenced the thoughts she could not say aloud. Her hands bled. She smiled. At dawn, a commotion stirred in the lower courtyard. A servant boy had been caught stealing rice. His hands were tied, his eyes wide with fear. The house steward, thick-necked and cruel, raised a cane. Ma-Ryeong stepped in. "Stop." The steward hesitated. "Young lady, this is not." She took the cane, gripped it hard, then struck him across the face. Gasps rippled like wind through the leaves. Blood beaded on the steward's cheek. "This boy is hungry," she said. "You waste food like air. Tell me, who is the real thief?" No one answered. She turned to the boy. "Next time, you come to me, not them." She was not heartless, but she was not soft. Some said she was too much for a woman. Too loud, too sharp, too stubborn. But Ma-Ryeong was never meant for smallness. And somewhere, Beyond the mountain fog, the man who would love her enough to break her and die for her was already sharpening his blade. His name was Ilhan, and her fate was already moving toward him like a whisper carried on steel. Chapter 2: The Man in the Shadows. Ilhan had been stationed at the Kim estate for 137 nights. He knew this, not because he counted out of boredom, but because soldiers learn to track the days the way others track breath. Quietly. Precisely. Like keeping time on a borrowed life. He was not supposed to look at her. Not supposed to know her name. Not supposed to see anything beyond his orders. But some flames are not content to burn quietly. She appeared first as a rumor among the other guards, the daughter of the house, the only girl among 3 sons, wild, disobedient, sharp-tongued. Ilhan didn't believe in idle talk. Until he saw her. Until he saw Lady Ma-Ryeong. It was always the same hour. Midnight slipped toward 1 when even the crickets gave pause. She would emerge, cloaked, veiled, walking like a ghost among the hedges and vanish beyond the outer gate. He followed. Never closely. Always silently. Always with the excuse that it was his duty to patrol the grounds beyond the wall. She never went far. Just far enough to breathe. Tonight, the moon was full. Silver spilled like ink across the hills. The orchard trees stood bare now. It was too early for camellias, but their branches whispered like old women watching something they could not stop. She stood in the grove, wind lifting her hair like black ribbon, her blade drawn. Ilhan remained behind a stone outcrop, hidden in shadow, just far enough that his breath wouldn't reach her. She did not know he was there. Or so he thought. Her sword struck the air again and again, not in form, but fury. She didn't move like someone trained for elegance. She moved like someone trying to survive herself. Each swing had a weight and name. Her muttering was half curse, half confession. "Minister Huang," she spat. "Obey," they said. "Obey, and you will live long." She laughed. The kind of laugh that made Ilhan flinch. It wasn't the laugh of a noblewoman. It was the laugh of someone who had stopped caring if the world heard her break. And Ilhan, who had grown up swallowing his voice, who had served men who never once looked him in the eyes, found himself unable to turn away. He had seen many things in war. Fire devouring villages. Children with blades. Noblemen cowering behind curtains. But he had never seen a woman like her. Beautiful, yes, but not in the way men wrote poems. She was beautiful the way lightning is beautiful. Terrible. Untamed. A warning. He should have left. But she stopped. Blade low. Shoulders heaving. Breath ragged like silk torn down the middle. "I know you're there," she said quietly. Ilhan froze. "I've known since the second night." She turned her head slightly, her hair spilling down one shoulder. "You hide behind the same stone every time." He stepped forward. Slowly. Out of the shadows. Her sword didn't raise. Her voice didn't tremble. He bowed. "Forgive me, milady." She tilted her head. "You've seen me at my worst. What is there left to forgive?" He looked up. Under moonlight, her eyes held the same fire as her blade. No, fiercer. The kind that didn't beg to be understood, only seen. "You're stronger than most men I've trained beside," he said. She smiled, not soft, but crooked. "And you're not like other guards." "No." "Then don't bow." He straightened. She turned away again, her back to him, sword pointed at the stars. "Tell no one." "I won't. If they find out, they'll say I'm cursed." Ilhan's voice was steady. "Then I'll be cursed with you." She paused. Just for a second. Then she resumed her strikes and let him watch. That night, beneath the hollow sky, neither of them said what they already knew. That something had begun. And something soon would end. Chapter 3: The Match They Called Duty. The flickering candlelight in her father's study cast a long shadow across the painted scrolls of virtue that lined the walls. Ma-Ryeong stood at the threshold, her red hanbok bold and defiant against the dim earth tones of the room. She had not been summoned. She had walked in of her own will. "You called for me," she said, though they both knew she was already here before the words left his mouth. Her father didn't lift his head. He was writing calligraphy with the kind of devotion he never gave his children. Only when the ink dried did he speak. Minister Huang's son arrives before the full moon, he said. You are to be wed by the end of the harvest. The silence that followed was not of obedience, but of fury biting its tongue. You will not ask if I agree? You are a daughter of this house, he said coolly. Your agreement is implied in your birth. I am not a beast to be bartered. No, he replied, eyes finally lifting to meet hers. You're a sword. And swords are only useful when pointed at the right target. Ma-Ryeong stepped forward. I am the eldest child of this house. I was the one who sat with mother's ashes for 7 nights while your advisors drank rice wine. I taught myself the book of songs before my brothers could hold a brush. I am not some decorative shell you can polish and send off to appease your shame. Her father's eyes darkened. You will not speak to me of shame while disobeying every virtue our name was built on. Our name was built on war and blood, not virtue, she shot back. If you want to preserve it, let me fight, not fold. The door creaked. Then a voice, smooth as oil and rotting underneath, fighting suits her. That temper, it'll make the wedding night all the more thrilling. Her body tensed at the intrusion. Ma-Ryeong turned slowly. Minister Huang's son. Dressed in sapphire silk, smugness carved into his face like a permanent mask. His hair was too perfectly tied, his fingers too clean for a man who claimed to lead men in the capital. You entered without permission, she said. I'll take far more than that without permission, he replied, stepping inside. When you're mine. Her nails dug into her palms until they bled. You think because I am a woman I'll bow? Her voice was a whip. You think I'll cry prettily into the pillow while you grind your name into my body? I think, he said, now just a few feet away, that you will scream for me to stop, and then beg me not to. She slapped him so hard that blood bloomed from the corner of his lip. He didn't move. He smiled. You'll regret that, he whispered. But I'll forgive you. In bed. Her hand moved again, this time, toward the blade tucked in the inner fold of her sleeve, but before she could draw it, someone seized her wrist. Ryeong, her brother hissed. Ma-Jin. Eldest of the Ma sons. Born between war campaigns, raised on obedience. His face was pale. You'll ruin us, he muttered. She tore her arm free. Then let me ruin everything. Enough, their father roared. This is no longer a discussion. She is the daughter of a noble house. She will wed. She will kneel. She will bear sons. No, Ma-Ryeong said, her voice of frozen flame. She will kill him. And then she will light incense for her own name. The room went still. Her father stood. She thought he might strike her. But instead, he looked at her as if she were a sickness he could no longer cure. The seamstress comes tomorrow, he said. And the temple bell will toll the day after, she answered. When someone finds his body in the lotus pond. The minister's son laughed. Let her threaten me all she wants. She'll break like the rest. They all break. Ma-Jin shoved him out of the room. Ma-Ryeong did not wait for permission. She turned and walked out, chin high, heart pounding like war drums. That night, she did not cry. She dressed in black, bound her hair like a man, and slipped into the woods behind the estate. The moon was high when she drew her sword and began to move. And someone was watching her. Ilhan's POV. He had watched her for weeks. A shadow among shadows. A soldier who should not see. But that night, when she struck the minister's son and stormed into the forest like fire refusing to be doused, something in him broke. Or perhaps, something old awakened. Ilhan followed her beyond the estate walls, through the silver hush of pine and bamboo, until they reached the clearing she thought no one knew. Her hanbok was gone. She wore black now, her hair braided tightly, her eyes set not like a lady of nobility, but like a warrior born from blood. He had seen death, but he had never seen her like this. Every swing of her blade was poetry. Not delicate, not soft, true. Her form was fierce. Her anger measured. She danced with the sword as though it were the only lover she would ever accept. Ilhan had served generals who trembled before battle. She did not. His hand tightened on the branch beside him. His breath betrayed him. She turned, mid-strike. Who's there? Her voice was already dangerous. He stepped forward into the light, slowly, carefully, his uniform mostly hidden beneath a dark traveling cloak. "A friend," he said softly. "A fool, perhaps." Her blade didn't lower. He bowed, not deeply, not formally, but sincerely. "Forgive me," he said. "I shouldn't have followed. But I've watched you for some nights now. I've seen you with that sword. I've seen you become." Ma-Ryeong narrowed her eyes. "And what do you want?" Ailhan hesitated. Then, with a breath that felt like surrender, he asked, "May I tell you something? Just once." She tilted her head. "What kind of something?" "The kind of something," he said, eyes locked on hers, "that could cost you your life." She didn't blink. Then she stepped forward, just one pace, but it felt like thunder. "If you speak it," she said, "you will not lose only my life. You will lose yours." He nodded. "I know." Ma-Ryeong looked at him differently now, like a lion that finds another predator not with fear, but recognition. "Then speak, soldier," she whispered. "But know that your words are no longer yours once they fall." Ailhan breathed. "Not steady. Not sure." "Then, I dreamed of you before I ever saw your face." Her fingers flinched on the hilt. "I dreamed of you in a place I don't understand. In a time with no names. I saw you in red, weeping at the edge of a cliff. And I was dying. I couldn't move. But I knew even then I would give my life for you." The night wind swallowed the silence between them. She stared at him, breath shallow. "I don't believe in fate," she finally said. "Neither did I," he replied. "Until now." Her sword lowered, an inch. "You're a soldier," she said. "Of his house." He nodded. "You're a fool," she added. He smiled faintly. "I told you that already." She walked toward him. Stopped just close enough to see the quiet ache behind his gaze. "I don't love men like you," she said. "I don't trust anyone who's born to follow." "I would follow no one," he answered, "if you told me not to." Her eyes narrowed. Then, for the first time, they softened. "If you stay," she warned, "you'll die for it." "If I leave," he said, "I'll still die. Just slower." She turned from him. "Then go back." "No one must know," she said. He nodded. "This place. These nights. They are ours," she said, voice low. "But only until they take them from us." Ailhan bowed again. But this time, she didn't ask him to rise. She just walked past him, into the trees, blade at her side, fate at her back. And Ailhan followed. Not because he was ordered, but because he already belonged to her. Chapter 4. Ma-Ryeong. The morning mist had not yet lifted when the maid spoke. "There's a mudang by the temple path, Agashi. She speaks of stars and shadows, and the last two she warned. Both died before the harvest moon." Ma-Ryeong didn't look up from the lacquered comb in her hand. Then she should be charged with murder, not praised for foresight. The maid hesitated, fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. "Still, she asked for you." Ma-Ryeong's hand froze. The room was dim, lit only by the weak sun slipping through the latticed windows. Outside, the cicadas had not yet begun their song. Inside, the silence thickened like a held breath. She stood. "Prepare my riding cloak." The maid blinked. "But you said?" "I don't believe in spirits," Ma-Ryeong said as she moved to her dressing table. "But I believe in warnings." She dressed not in the bright silks expected of a noble daughter, but in deep crimson. Her hanbok was understated in embroidery, but bold in color. A silent defiance. A single hairpin held up her raven-black hair, sharp as a dagger. Beneath her jaggery, hidden by folds of fabric, was the slim, curved blade she'd stolen from her eldest brother's collection. Let them talk. Let them wonder why the noble daughter roamed before daylight unchaperoned. She was halfway to the eastern gate when the guard stepped forward, hand raised. "My lady," he stammered, "you are not permitted beyond this hour without." She drew the blade without pause. Cold steel glinted in the fog. "Step aside." The young man's eyes widened. I have orders. And I have a taste for blood this morning," Ma-Ryeong said softly. "Shall I prove it on your throat?" The silence was broken only by the sound of a shallow breath and the distant crow of a rooster. He stepped back. Without another word, she passed him, red silk trailing like spilled wine across the stone path. The mudang's shrine was at the edge of the woods, tucked between twisted trees and ancient stones. Incense clung to the air like memory, and the wind carried whispers no one had spoken. The old woman did not greet her. She sat cross-legged in the dust, her eyes white with blindness or something older. Candles flickered in bowls of water. Ma-Ryeong did not bow. "You called for me." The mudang did not smile. "I did not call. I listened. The sky screamed your name." Ma-Ryeong crossed her arms. "And what did it say?" "That you are born of fire," the mudang said, her voice rasping like branches in wind. "But fire does not love. It devours." Ma-Ryeong's joy tightened. "Then may it devour who it pleases." The mudang reached for a bowl and tipped it, water spilled, swirling with ink. Shapes bloomed and faded. "There is a man," she said. "Two lives have already bled for each other. This is the third." Ma-Ryeong said nothing. "If you walk this path," the old woman continued, "you will watch him die again. And this time, it will be your hands that sent him there." Something in Ma-Ryeong's chest turned to ice. The mudang looked up at her then. "But if you do not love him, you will never live at all." Ma-Ryeong stared down at the bowl, where the ink bled into the last curl of water. She turned without a word and left, crimson silk trailing behind her like a funeral banner. Chapter 4. Ilhan. She returned at dusk. The gates creaked open, and there she was draped in a red hanbok that caught the dying sunlight like flame. Her shadow stretched long across the stone, like the echo of something already gone. The guard who had tried to stop her stood stiffly, eyes averted, shame or fear hardening his spine. He would not forget her. Neither would I. I watched from the outer barracks, hidden in the shadow of the eastern wall. She didn't see me. She rarely did. Not when she was like this, shoulders braced, eyes burning, mouth set in a line that no man could cross without being cut. And yet I would have crossed it for her. I would have let her cut me. Her blade. Her words. Her silence. I had never seen a woman walk like that, like she carried thunder beneath her ribs. Like the world had wronged her, and she had returned to punish it. They whispered that she was dangerous. Unfit to be a wife. Too sharp, too proud, too much. They were afraid of her. I was not afraid. I was bewitched. That night, when the barracks grew quiet and the other guards drifted to sleep, I went back to the ridge overlooking her courtyard. Just as I had the night before. And the night before that. I told myself I was on patrol. That I was guarding the estate. But I was guarding her. She appeared beneath the moonlight, just as she always did, her red sleeves now exchanged for the looser garb of a man. Her hair unbound, a sword strapped across her back. She moved like smoke, each motion deliberate, lethal, and elegant. My heart ached at the sight of her. A noblewoman of the Yongban, daughter of a high-ranking scholar. Forbidden. Untouchable. Promised now to the minister's son, a man whose mouth dripped filth and hands hungered for conquest. I clenched my fists at the memory of his voice. "Whether you like it or not, you will be my wife. I will break you in bed every night until you learn how to bow." I had been there in the shadows when she slapped him. And I was there when her brother pulled her away, not in shame, but in fear of what she might do next. Gods, she should not be promised to a man like that. She should be free. Her sword flashed beneath the moonlight. One final strike. One last breath. And then, she stilled. "Come out," she said suddenly, not turning. My breath caught. She had known I was there. She always knew. I stepped out slowly from behind the trees. My boots quiet over the dirt. She turned to face me. Her gaze met mine, moonlight caught in her eyes like steel. "Do you always watch women from the shadows?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "Only you." She blinked once. A flicker. A softness. Then it was gone. "What is it you want?" I stepped closer. "I have something to tell you." She tilted her head. Her hand did not leave the hilt of her blade. "Then tell it," she whispered. "But know this, truths that cost lives do not come without a price." I took one more step. "And you, Agashi?" I asked. "Would you be willing to pay it?" She looked at me for a long moment. Her breath a quiet cloud in the cold night. Then, her voice came soft and certain. If it is love, yes. Even if it ruins me. Chapter 5. The Cost of Steel and Silence. Pain has many faces. Sometimes, it comes dressed as silence, your father's eyes refusing to meet yours over the breakfast table. Other times, it arrives as thunder, a servant's hurried breath, a guard's whisper. Or worse, the heavy sound of your name being called, not with affection, but with authority. That morning, the sky was pale and low, as though the heavens themselves were holding their breath. The courtyard was colder than it should have been, and I should have known. The birds did not sing. Agashi, so one said softly, her voice more tremor than sound. She folded my outer robe with shaking hands. Her eyes stayed on the fabric. The master, he knows. My breath stilled. I turned to face her. Knows what? She swallowed hard. That you left the estate last night. That you've been training. Someone saw you in the eastern forest, and they went to the head steward. The report has already reached your father's study. My fingers curled tightly into the edge of the blanket I had yet to fold. My nails dug into the silk. Did they see me alone? She hesitated. Then shook her head. No. They said nothing about a man. Only that you held a sword. Relief cut through the tension like a blade. Good. Ilhan would not suffer for this. But I would. The summons came less than an hour later. A guard, expression rigid, appeared at my door. He said nothing, only gestured. As I walked the long halls of the main house, I passed servants who bowed lower than usual, their eyes rooted to the floor. Fear lingered in the air like thick incense. A storm was coming, and no one wanted to be caught beneath it. My father stood waiting in the receiving hall, flanked by my two brothers. The eldest, Jae-hwa, stood with a downcast gaze. Min-jae, the youngest, stared at me as if I were a stranger. No words of welcome. No questions. You have shamed this house, my father said coldly. I bowed. Low. But not in surrender. I trained, I said. For my protection. You are not a son, he replied. You have 3 brothers to protect you. You do not need to wield a weapon. Then tell them to marry the minister's son in my place. Silence fell like an executioner's blade. Jae-hwa looked down, ashamed. Min-jae's lips parted in disbelief. My father's nostrils flared. You leave me no choice. 2 guards entered the room. Behind them, the head steward, his face devoid of emotion, carried it. The tae. The punishment stick. Polished wood, heavy and unforgiving. Meant to humble the disobedient, whether noble or lowborn. My throat tightened, but I stood tall. Strip her robe, my father ordered. The guards approached. I raised a hand. No need. I untied the sash at my waist myself, pulling off the outer layer of silk until only my underrobe clung to me. The air hit my back like winter. They made me kneel in the courtyard. Servants gathered on the edges. Someone wept behind the lattice screen. I kept my chin lifted. The first strike landed with the sound of thunder. Pain splintered through my spine like a blade of fire. But I did not scream. I bit the inside of my lip until iron flooded my mouth. The second blow came. Then the third. Fourth. Each one worse than the last. At the 10th, my knees trembled. At the 15th, blood began to seep through the white linen of my robe. The guards hesitated, but my father's face remained impassive. Continue. On the 18th, I wavered. On the 20th, I fell forward, my hands catching me just before my face hit the stones. Still, I did not scream. I was carried back to my chamber. The air smelled of smoke and copper. My skin burned as though set aflame. Someone sobbed as she washed and dressed my wounds. Stop crying, I told her hoarsely. Better to bleed now, than bleed later in some man's bed who calls it a right. Her sobbing only grew. That night, I lay on my stomach, every breath a prayer not to move. My thoughts were ash and thunder. A soft knock sounded at my door. Someone opened it only a crack. Ilhan stepped inside. He knelt beside me, eyes immediately falling to the bruises and gauze across my back. His hands curled into fists. I should have kept you safe, he whispered, voice full of guilt. I turned my head toward him, despite the pain. My eyes met his, dark with emotion, with fire, with something older than this life. No, I said. You should never have let them see. He lowered his gaze, ashamed. There was silence for a time. Then, softly, he asked, "May I tell you something? Something that could cost you everything?" I watched him for a long moment. His jaw was tense, his soul already grieving what he had yet to say. I nodded once, slowly. "But if you do," I said, "know that those words will cost you your life." His breath hitched. Still, he leaned closer. Because it was already too late. Because we both knew. Some tragedies begin not with war, but with a whisper. Chapter 6. The Cage and the Blade. Eilhan did not speak right away. He sat there beside me, his hands clenched and still, as though one wrong movement might shatter what fragile peace remained between us. Moonlight filtered through the paper screen, pale as breath. Outside, the wind stirred the branches of the camellia tree. The petals had begun to fall again. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than before. "I have followed orders all my life," he said. "I've bled for this kingdom, killed for it, buried my comrades without weeping. And yet," he looked at me, "I would abandon everything for one word from you." I did not look at him. "You are a soldier," I said coldly. "That's what you were made for." "And what were you made for?" he asked. His words struck deep. I closed my eyes. My body ached. My back throbbed in steady rhythm with my heartbeat, every breath a knife edge. But none of that hurt as much as the question. A wife. A vessel. A daughter. A title in red silk. I was made to kneel, I said bitterly. To smile at ministers' sons who look at me like prey. To be traded between families like cattle so my father can raise his rank and my brothers can marry well. Eilhan's eyes darkened. "You are not a thing to be owned." "You say that," I whispered, "but the moment I remove the title they gave me, noble daughter, Yongbon's blood, I become no one. I lose my sword, my name, my voice, my place." I paused. "I am afraid of losing that power," I admitted. "But I am more afraid of becoming nothing but that power." Eilhan reached for me slowly, as if touching fire. His fingers brushed my hand. My skin flinched from the pain, but I did not pull away. "You are not nothing," he said. "Even if you were born a servant, even if you were born a ghost, I would still kneel at your feet." I turned to him then, really turned, despite the fire across my back. And what would kneeling do? It would not stop the wedding. It would not erase my title. It would not save you from what will happen if anyone finds you here tonight. He smiled, though his eyes remained sad. "Then let me die knowing I chose it. That I came here not because I was brave, but because I couldn't keep myself away." I laughed. A short, broken sound. "You're a fool." "Yes," he said. "But I would rather be a fool at your feet than a general without you." For a long moment, we sat in silence. The candle on the table flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird sang. Then I spoke, quieter now. "I cannot be yours, Eilhan. I know. And yet..." He looked up. "I want you to keep watching me," I said. "Even if you can't touch. Even if you can't speak. When I draw my blade, I want you to be there." His voice cracked. "I will always be there." That night, he did not kiss me. But when he left, I felt the echo of him stay, like a shadow on my skin, like a secret too dangerous to carry, and too precious to bury. It was the beginning. Not of love, but of war. Chapter 7. The Silence Between Footsteps. Rain can baptize or betray. That evening, it did both. It began with thunder. The sky split open with a sound like a sword drawn from the scabbard of heaven, and rain came suddenly, fiercely, drumming against tiled rooftops and scattering petals from the camellia trees. I stood alone on the stone threshold of the East Hall, the forbidden chamber where I had been confined after the punishment. The pain in my back had dulled, but the fire in my chest had not. Someone had begged me to stay in bed. "Your fever will rise again," she said. "You'll tear the skin if you walk too far." But I needed air. I needed the storm. Because nothing inside these walls felt real anymore, except the ache. I left with no destination. No shawl. No shoes. The rain soaked through my underrobe in minutes, but I didn't care. I walked toward the eastern trail behind the estate, where no guards lingered and no prayers dared pass. They called it haunted. I called it home. And that's where I saw him. Aelhan. He stood beneath the bent arm of an old pine, stripped of armor, bare arms glistening with rain. His hair clung to his face and water ran down the curve of his jaw like ink bleeding on parchment. He was supposed to be posted near the southern gates. Not here. Not tonight. He hadn't seen me yet. I watched him for a moment longer than I should have, breathing in silence, the storm wrapping around us like a cloak. Then he turned and froze. For a heartbeat, the rain was the only thing that moved. "You're not supposed to be out," he said, voice roughened by wind and war. I took one step forward. "Neither are you." He didn't answer, but his gaze searched me. His eyes paused on my damp robe, where the cloth clung tightly across my shoulder blades, and I knew he was imagining the wounds beneath. The bruises. The welts. "You should be resting," he said. "You should be gone," I replied. Silence stretched between us. The truth was, we had no words for what was happening. Not yet. We had only stolen time and foolish hearts. "You keep watching me," I said, half accusation, half confession. "I can't seem to stop." I stood now inches from him. My fingers reached up on instinct, on madness, and brushed a strand of wet hair from his brow. The moment stretched. He leaned into my touch as if it were warmth. "You should forget me," I whispered. "This will ruin you." "I already am," he said. "You ruined me the moment you looked back." And then, voices, boots, a rustle in the leaves. We turned too late. A steward's lantern broke through the mist. Behind him, 3 guards. And behind them, my father, Lord Beck. His hat was soaked through, his expression unreadable until his eyes fell upon me, then upon Aelhan, his gaze sharpening like the blade of a drawn sword. "Step away from her," he commanded. Aelhan didn't move. "Step away." The silence roared. "I'm sorry," Aelhan said, bowing, but his feet remained planted. "But I cannot." Something in my father's face changed then. Not rage. Not scandal. Contempt. He turned to me. "You will return to your hall. Now." I opened my mouth to protest, but Aelhan gently touched my wrist, a plea, not a command. And I obeyed. But as I walked away, I looked back once. He still hadn't stepped back. And that's when I knew it had begun. Not the love story. The war. Later that night, they summoned Aelhan to the Hall of Judgment. No trial. No hearing. Just silence and a room too cold for apologies. He knelt before my father, stripped of his sash, the seal of the military absent from his uniform. Lord Beck stood in full court attire. The room was lit only by lanterns, their flames flickering like breath held too long. "You're a soldier," my father began, a low-born man offered the rarest of honors, to serve among the royal guards of a noble house. "And yet, you betray that honor." Aelhan remained still. His head bowed, but not in fear. "You dare touch a noble daughter? Whisper to her beneath our roofs. What should I call you, insolent, or just a fool?" "Call me whatever you wish," Aelhan said quietly. But I did not touch her. Not with intent. Not without respect. "You speak of respect," my father scoffed, "and yet you stand where no man of your class should even look." At that, Aelhan raised his eyes. "Respect is not a matter of class. I have watched your daughter fight her fate with more dignity than half your court. I do not come to dishonor her. I come to stand beside her." "You come to destroy her," my father snapped. "Do you think love will protect her when the ministers whisper? When the king hears of this? If the court ruins her for being seen near me," Aelhan said, "then ruin was already written in your laws." My father's mouth pressed into a thin line. "You would throw away your life for a fantasy." "No," Aelhan replied, breath steady. "I would throw away my life for truth. Because ruin with her is better than a future without." The room fell silent. And then be ready to face that ruin. Chapter 8. Armor. The morning arrived in silence. Not the kind of peace born from rest, but the kind that suffocates just before a storm. The kind that buries birdsong and stills wind, as if the world itself is holding its breath. So one's fingers trembled as she brushed my hair. I sat before the mirror, my eyes locked on the reflection, not at my face, but at the color of the robe I wore. Black. I had chosen it myself. No embroidery. No jade sash. No bright silk that proclaimed virtue or innocence. Just black, deep and solemn like mourning and sharp as the edge of a blade. Ayagashi, so one stammered, that color, it is not proper. I interrupted. Fitting for a daughter of a scholar? Unseemly for a maiden? She nodded. Good, I said. Let it unsettle them. She swallowed hard and looked away. You must change before the morning meal. I won't be attending it. I stood, fastened my outer robe, and slipped a simple silver pin through my hair. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't look back. I was halfway through the garden when the whisper found me. They've taken him. My steps faltered. A steward's apprentice, barely older than my youngest brother, stood at the edge of the corridor. His face was pale. Taken who? I asked. He looked down. The guard. Ilhan. He was seen with you last night. He was summoned before the court. Lord Beck, he's ordered public punishment. My vision narrowed. What kind of punishment? His lips quivered. 20 lashes. And then, exile or worse. They say, there is talk of execution. Something in me snapped. I turned without another word and ran. The black hem of my robe tore across gravel. Servants scattered in my path. Courtiers gasped as I flew past them through the long stone corridor into the belly of the estate where sentences were dealt and names erased. The courtyard was already full when I arrived. Guards, stewards, house nobles, all gathered like crows. And in the center of them, Ilhan. His arms were bound above him to the judgment post, his back already a canvas of red welts and broken skin. Blood ran down in rivers, soaking into the earth beneath his knees. He did not cry out. He did not flinch. But I did. I stepped between him and the man preparing to strike the next blow. Stop, I said. A hush fell over the crowd. They recognized me. Not as a daughter, but as a force. They saw the black robe. The silver blade was tucked into my sash. The fire in my voice. Stand down, I ordered the executioner. He hesitated. Stand down. From the high steps, my father descended like a verdict made flesh. He wore his scholar's robes, white and dignified, spotless even now. Step aside, Ma-Ryeong, he said. His voice was calm. Always calm. As if he wasn't watching blood spill in his name. No. You disgrace yourself. I met his gaze. I reclaim myself. He stopped 2 steps above me. You would shield a man who touched you in defiance of every law we uphold? I would shield a man who bled for this house and loved me without asking for permission. This is not love, he hissed. This is rebellion. Then let it be, I said, my voice rising. If love is rebellion, then I rebel with every breath. I will not kneel. I will not marry a man who sees me as a conquest. I will not become the wife of your politics. His jaw tightened. He is not of your class. He is more noble than half the men in your court. He is nothing. He is everything I am not allowed to be free. Unshackled by legacy. And unafraid. You speak of love as though it will save you. No, I said, stepping up to meet him face to face. Love won't save me. But it will arm me. I unfastened the silver pin in my hair. The blade flashed beneath the pale sky. Love is an armor. And I will wear it to war. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But I did not waver. You speak of shame, I said, voice shaking with truth. But it is you who should be ashamed. You have raised a daughter who cannot be bought, who cannot be silenced. If Ilhan dies, I swear by every god and ghost, I will become something you cannot contain. Silence followed. Then, seize her. 2 guards moved. I turned, drawing the blade not in warning, but in promise. If you touch him again, I will draw blood, I said. And it won't be his. The guards froze. Ilhan stirred behind me. His head lifted, eyes dazed and full of pain, but he smiled. A bloodied, broken smile that still held light. My father looked at me. And for the first time, he did not see his daughter. He saw his undoing. Chapter 9. The Bargain. The courtyard had long emptied, but its echo remained. The blood on the stones. The black robe clinging to my skin. The memory of my voice cutting through the silence like thunder. If blood must spill, let it be mine, not his. My father had not answered with fury. He had answered with calculation. Confine the guard, he said. The punishment will be discussed privately. Ailhan was dragged away, unconscious and bleeding. And I? I was led back to my chamber, not in chains, but with the weight of a noose slowly tightening around my choices. The descent to the barracks. But I did not stay confined long. At sunset, I changed. Gone was the black robe of defiance. Tonight, I wore war. A deep crimson geoghery embroidered with obsidian thread, its color edged in charcoal gray silk, a widow's color, though I had never been wed. My chima billowed as I walked, stiffened with hidden layers. My belt was silver, wrapped twice around my waist like a serpent. No jewelry. No ornaments in my hair. Just a single black ribbon, tied like mourning, pinned with a small iron dagger instead of jade. Someone gasped when she saw me. You look like death. No, I replied. I look like a consequence. A noble daughter had no right to visit the punishment barracks. Not unless summoned. Not unless accompanied by men. But I would not crawl. Not tonight. I stepped into the main courtyard flanked by two silent stewards, both of whom once taught my younger brothers the art of archery. Now they walked behind me, eyes forward, offering neither blessing nor hesitation. The guards at the barracks gate rose when they saw me. One stepped forward. Lady Ma-Ryeong, this place is restricted. Move, I said. I'm afraid I can't allow. I moved first. Steel flashed. My blade left its sheath in a blur of silver and blood. The man staggered, eyes wide, hand at his throat. He gurgled once, then collapsed. The others stepped back in horror. I am the daughter of Scholar Beck, I said coldly. I do not need your permission. No one stopped me after that. Ailhan. The air inside the barracks stank of iron and sweat. Dampness clung to the walls like memory. I found him behind a rice paper screen, half conscious, his wrists still raw from the bindings. A single oil lamp flickered above his cot, casting soft light on his torn robes and bruised face. He didn't stir when I entered. Ailhan, I said softly. His eyes fluttered open. Recognition dawned, pained and stunned. You came. I had to. You're not allowed. Who will stop me now? He tried to rise. I knelt beside him and guided him back down. I thought, he rasped, they would kill me. They almost did. I brushed the hair from his eyes. My fingers trembled, but not with fear. With fury. I will get you out, I whispered. He swallowed. At what cost? I haven't decided yet. You shouldn't. I already have. He reached for my hand, his fingers weak but warm. You're trembling. I killed a man today, I said. His eyes widened. A guard who raised his blade to me, I added. He forgot who I was. I reminded him. Ailhan was silent. You won't die in this place, I promised. Even if I have to tear this estate apart. The bargain. By the time I returned to my father's chambers, I had cleaned my blade but not my soul. He stood before the incense burner, the air thick with the scent of bitter orange and cold power. I did not bow. I saw him, I said. He didn't look at me. I heard. He is innocent. He turned slowly. He is guilty of touching something above his station. Then raise his station. You are still a child if you believe the world works like poetry. I met his gaze. Then I will write my own language. He stared at me for a long time. Then, in that familiar tone of soft cruelty. You want him to live? Yes. Then marry Minister Park's son. Before the next moonrise. I said nothing. His eyes narrowed. You will secure your name. You will silence the gossip. You will carry a powerful house on your back and in return, your little guard lives. No exile. No lash. No noose. The words sink like iron into my spine. And if I refuse? He stepped closer. Then Ailhan dies before sunrise. And his blood will stain your name until your last breath. My throat ached. My fingers curled. But I nodded once. Not out of surrender. Out of strategy. I will think on it. You have 2 nights, he said. But he did not smile. He knew I already had my answer. Chapter 10. Teeth Beneath the Silk. The guest pavilion shimmered with wealth too much for a family that claimed humility. White jade dragons curled along the beams. Silk screens bore embroidered cranes, and the air itself smelled of cinnamon wine and old incense. It had once hosted kings. Now it held a viper. Park Won-ho lounged on a curved seat near the open lattice doors. He was dressed in ceremonial court attire too rich for the occasion, a deep blue Ma-Ryeong robe with wide sleeves embroidered in golden clouds. His belt was inlaid with mother-of-pearl. At his shoulder gleamed the seal of his lineage, a silver phoenix eating its own tail. He looked, at a glance, like elegance. But Rot dressed itself well in Joseon. He raised his wine cup without standing, and the jade ring on his thumb tapped the porcelain lazily. "You're late," he said. Ma-Ryeong entered with the force of thunder. No lady-in-waiting. No escort. Just her silence and the soft hiss of her hem against the stone. She wore black again, a refined shade that dared to shine violet under the low sun. Her geoggery was tailored sharply, edged in dark red stitching like blood barely crusted. Her chima swept long and high-waisted, stiffened with hidden boning beneath the fabric like armor. 2 silver crane pins adorned her high braid, but only one caught the light. No smile. No fan. No submission. She looked like war dressed for court. Won-ho smirked. "That color doesn't suit a bride." Ma-Ryeong didn't sit. "It suits a woman preparing for a funeral," she replied. "Yours or mine?" "Yours." Eventually. He took a slow sip. "I see the rumors were true. You do have a mouth sharper than any blade." "I have both," she said flatly. "Would you like to find out which is faster?" He chuckled, setting the cup down. "You're dramatic." "No," she corrected, "I'm furious." "There's a difference." Their eyes met then, and for a fleeting moment, Ma-Ryeong stilled. There was something in his gaze she didn't expect. It wasn't smugness. Not entirely. Nor lust, nor anger, nor cruelty. She had expected all those things. Braced for them. Readied her rage like a spear. But behind his pupil was something else. Unfamiliar. A flicker of grief? Hunger? Desperation? Whatever it was, it vanished the moment she noticed it, replaced again by that gleaming, performative arrogance. "You look confused," he said, tilting his head. "I thought I saw something human in your face." He laughed, but it was brittle this time. "I'm very human," he said. "That's why I want you." "You don't want me," she snapped. "You want a name. You want my father's favor. You want to parade me like a prize you didn't earn." He rose to his full height, not taller than her, but broader and drenched in entitlement. The gold threads on his robe caught firelight, but his skin remained pale, untouched by effort. "You think I can't have you," he murmured. "I already do." She stepped forward, close enough for him to smell the cloves in her perfume, sharp and bitter. "Try and claim me," she whispered, "and I will take your eyes." He stared at her. "You think you scare me?" "No," she said. "I think I should." The silence cracked like ice. Then he dropped the performance. "If you don't marry me," he said softly, "I will end him. Slowly. Publicly. In pieces." Ma-Ryeong went still. He saw it, the twitch of fear in her throat, the tightness in her fists. But what he didn't see coming was the smile that followed. It was slight. Terrifying. "You'll touch him," she said, "and I'll turn your lungs into lanterns." He blinked. "You're not the only one with secrets," she whispered. Then she turned, her robe slicing the air like a closing curtain. His voice came behind her, brittle with rage. "You'll see, Ma-Ryeong. You'll come crawling back when the world crushes your little rebellion." She didn't look back. "I'd rather crawl through fire than lie beside you." And then she was gone. Thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe for the next chapter and more upcoming audiobook.